Hey guys, I'm excited to have a guy that I started following a while back, and it should have been just he really actually should have been like my second or my third guest. Now that I think about it, after all the stuff that we talk about in my episodes, we talk about overcoming adversity, we talk about starting podcasts, we talk about all these types of things, mental toughness, entrepreneurship, all this stuff. My boy Zachary Babcock, known as the Underdog.
The Underdog.
The
What up,
Underdog.
man?
What's up, brother? Thanks for coming on, man. And we were just talking before we actually started the recording, and I was like, you're like a big deal, and you were like, no, man, I'm not a big deal. But dude, you are a big deal, man. You're interviewing like big time players on your show.
Man, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's really, I'm just, man, I'm in the trenches with everybody else, man, doing the work each day and just trying to make the most of it.
So let's talk about kind of like the early stages, early Zach, because, I get comparisons a lot of times, like now, like my parents' friends will come up to me and they'll be like, I remember when you were a kid, and you were just so ornery and so mouthy and you were always getting in trouble and things like that. And I remember now I actually say to them, I'm like, you realize like, it wasn't actually me. I wasn't getting in trouble. I was just taking the brunt for your kids. You guys, your kids were actually the ones that would do something, and I just took it because the expectation was that, oh, Todd gets in trouble all the time. So I'll just be like, you know what? I did it. I did it. It was me. And you probably dealt with that, but a lot of people also talk about like attention deficit disorder, stuff like that. I have ADHD. And I don't say I suffer from it because a lot of people always say like they suffer from it. If anything, it's probably one of my biggest strengths. But talk to me a little bit about like early Zach, kind of like, your early days, like middle school, elementary school, high school, that kind of stuff. Because that's where things change, right?
Yeah, man. So you talk about ADD and ADHD. I got ADD, ADHD, ABCD, all that shit, man. And it was growing up, I never did good well in school. Just it wasn't my thing. I'm not one of those guys that hates on it completely and says, "Oh, school's for suckers" or whatever, blah blah blah. No, it's not. If you want to be like a doctor or a lawyer, cool. You know what I'm saying? It might be for you. It just wasn't for me. And my thing is, I'm like you, man. My ADD, ABCD, all that shit, dude. Like that's been my greatest strength. Like I can't focus on anything that doesn't interest me. But if I'm interested, I will get laser focus and go all the way in, dude. And that's just how I am. So I never did good in school, and that's where I started getting in trouble. I started hanging out with the wrong crowd. I didn't have a father figure, so I wanted to do shit to fit in. I mean, we all do to an extent. Anybody says like, "Oh, I don't care what other people think." Well, that's bullshit, man, because we're all social creatures, and one of our biggest fears is being exiled from the tribe. So to an extent, you do care. I just cared a little bit more than what was, I guess you would say, healthy or whatnot. And that led to me doing a lot of stupid shit that was out of character in order to fit in with these groups or whatnot. But yeah, man, by the time I was 17, I was catching cases, being a knucklehead. And by the time, after I caught those cases, man, I thought I was going to go to prison for a long time. I just got put on probation. I didn't know how the system worked. And so I just went off the deep end, became a full blown, heroin addict and crackhead, like picking crack crumbs off the carpet, like just completely out there, bro. And that ended up getting me to go to prison by the time I was 19.
Yeah. So, I mean, there you go right there. I mean, you're in prison by the time you were 19. Do you think and this is just out of curiosity, I guess like the psychological side, kind of me analyzing, is you not having a father figure? Cause I lucky, like very lucky. I have a great father still. He's like, to this day, he's 77, one of my best friends. But put up with a lot of shit, man. I mean, there's no question about it. Do you think that had something to do with you veering down that path?
Yeah, man, 100%. Cause I guess I didn't have a father. My mother never got remarried or never had like a real lasting relationship after that. So I never had like a father figure in my life growing up. And I mean, my mom was awesome, dude. But you know just as well as I know that a mother can't raise, you can't discipline her son like a father figure can. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
And we need that fight. We need that disciplinary man to model in our lives and to know what being a man really is. So I just, I would want to. I hung out with all older kids, and I wanted to just fit in and be accepted. I guess I was like, I don't know if I really was or not, unconsciously or not, like searching for like that father figure or whatnot. But I would just do shit that was out of character to fit in with these groups or whatnot.
I think it's interesting too that you pointed out that we're, from a human standpoint, we're very social, and there's a lot of people that I feel kind of front on the side of that they don't care if people like them. And here's the thing. At 40 years old now, because I'm 40, I'm very capable of not giving a shit if you like me or not. It still hurts, right? And I'll admit that it hurts if someone doesn't like me, but I'm very accepting to the fact that if you don't like me, I don't really give a shit, whether it's a client or if it's if it's just a person. So I've been more selective about the people that I hang around. And obviously that comes with age, but when you're younger, dude, that's all you care about. And you can be as rebellious as you say you are, or not give a shit or whatever it is. At the end of the day, you just want to fit in and you want to be accepted, just like you said, by, we call it a tribe, but I mean, that's really what it is. Your group of friends, you want to be accepted, and it ends up pressuring you into doing things that you really didn't want to do. Like, did you get addicted to drugs because you were trying to, cover an emotion that you were feeling? Yeah, probably. I mean, that's why I drank. When I was going through the stressful times in my life, I mean, I turned to alcohol, and that was what helped me numb things. Now I'm 5 years sober, obviously, which is a lot of people are like, why'd you get drunk? Oh, they always say good for you. You probably get that too. They're like, oh, good for you, man. And I'm like, dude. Oh yeah, it's like I'm a fucking baby that just learned to walk or something. Like, like, look at you. And I'm just like, so it's interesting as the years have gone on, where I'm like, now I find myself not really caring if I'm in a social situation and people are drinking around me, but there comes to a point where I'm like, I want to, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to get out of here. And I think, again, that just comes with age, as you and I, as fathers now, and as we get older and things of that nature, we're very selective now. And the I don't care attitude is accepted in what we do now, from the age group that we're in, and obviously being a parent. So you dealt with these, you dealt with these struggles early on. You go to jail at 19. What happens from there?
Man, I went in. It's funny. 19 years old. On the outside, I try to act like a badass and act like I was tough, but I was going to prison, dude. I'm scared shitless at the time. I don't know what to expect. But I learned really quickly what the social dynamics were, what the unspoken rules were, and how to operate in there. And I went in, a 19-year-old kid, came out 23-year-old kid still. But a lot happened in there. A lot of, I guess you would say, paradigm shifting moments. One that really sticks out is when my sister passed away. I was in the hole, which is the prison inside of the prison. You can walk 3 steps one way and 3 steps the next. You got very little to no human interaction. It's really dark, dirty, cold, just not a very pleasant place to be at all. And I got called back to the captain's office. I was down there for 2 months for some tattoo violations, got called back to the captain's office. I'm thinking that they're trying to get me to tell somebody else, or that somebody had told on me for something I hadn't gotten in trouble for yet. And so I'm in my rebellious stage. I get back there to the captain's office, like, have a seat. I'm like, dude, I ain't got shit to say. Put me back in my cell. And he's like, yeah, we got a call over the weekend, and your sister passed away from a heroin overdose. Your mom had to find her dead in a bathroom with a needle in her arm. I'm like, holy shit. Like, that was like the last thing I was expecting. And so they gave me a 30-second phone call to my mom. We're both crying our eyes out, telling each other we love each other. And then the phone hangs up 30 seconds later. And then they put me in a cell. I asked to be put in a cell by myself. I didn't want to be in there with a cellmate or anything. I just wanted some time alone. And for the next 3 days, didn't get out of bed, just only to use the restroom. That was it. No, didn't eat. Was crying my eyes out. All I could think about was all the mean things I ever said and did to my sister, and the goodbye I never get to tell her. But on that third day, and I feel like this might be really helpful to your audience, or at least I hope it is. But on that third day, I woke up Todd, and I was like, I don't know why I'm still here. I don't know what that reason is, but there is a reason. I'm still breathing. What can I do in this situation to find happiness and peace? And it's crazy, but at the time I didn't even know what I was doing. But later on, this is 2010 before I even knew what the hell self-help books were.
Right.
But 2017, I read the book Waking the Giant Within by Tony Robbins. He talks about when you ask yourself a question, you have to, your brain immediately searches for the answers. Like if I were to say, what color shoes are you wearing? You immediately just thought about the color of your shoes. And that's just how the brain works. It focuses our attention. So in most situations, and I'm very guilty of this, and most of the time when we're in those adverse situations, when the world's crumbling around us and it feels like there's no light at the end of the tunnel, we ask dumb fucking questions. We'll say, well, why does this always got to happen to me? Or blah, blah, blah. And so you're focusing your attention on the wrong shit. And I just got lucky by asking the right empowering question of what can I do right now to find happiness and peace? And because of that, it focused on what I could do, what I had power in that situation. Now, mind you, I'm trapped in a 8x10 cell,
Right.
very, very little to no freedoms, but it got me to focus on what I could do. And so I developed this crazy ass routine. I mean, if you think OCD is something crazy, they don't have shit on what I was doing, but I would clean myself. We had 2 bathing towels. I took one of them, ripped them up to a bunch of mini rags to scrub the one for the floor, one for the sink, one for the toilet, one for the floor. Like this whole entire crazy routine. Every single minute was like detailed. Like the nurse would come around each day by ourselves. The lunch would come in each day. I'd work out at a specific time every day. Like it was just to the T. And by doing this, it gave me a peace of mind in a really, really dark time. And it was all because of asking myself that empowering questions. I know I kind of went off on the deep end there, but
No, it's fine. It's what I want to hear.
Yeah.
So as far as the empowering questions, I'm kind of curious as to the questions that you were asking yourself to get yourself refocused. Like what, at that point, you're in that 8x10 cell. What I guess we know what changed it, right? But what was the question that was then leading to the change inside that cell where you were like, all right, this is it. Like, I'm changing.
Yeah. It was that question where I said, what can I do right now to find happiness and peace?
That's what I wanted to hear.
Yeah, that's what I asked myself instead of the, oh, why does this always got to happen to me or whatnot? And then that's what got me to focus on what I could do.
Yeah. And see, that's the part that I feel like, and you're absolutely right, this will help the listeners. That's the part that was the same for me. When I was being sued for $2.5 million by an ex-business partner, when I was going through a divorce, when I was going through bankruptcy, when I was out of money. I mean, I'm not in a prison cell, so not the same thing, but
it's still
a struggle.
Yeah.
Still like, what the fuck, man? I had all this and now I have nothing. Like what, and of course you're absolutely right. The first thing that you say is, why me? Now, what I find interesting is if you go back and you think to each thing that led to each result, it was a decision that you made. It wasn't a decision that somebody else made. So it wasn't anyone else's fault. It was that you made the decision to put yourself in that situation, right?
Yeah.
And so when we stop blaming other people for the reason why we're in a situation and we start accepting the fact that we really put ourselves there, that's when we can start helping with the change. That's when you also start kind of figuring out that maybe it's about helping other people, right? In those situations. And of course, like telling your story. And that's what you're doing right now, which is what I really like. So fast forward me to you're obviously changing within those bars. And what happens when you finally get the opportunity to get out?
Yeah. Well, really quick, what you just mentioned was so gold. Like it really is everything right and wrong in your life is your fault. And until you can take that extreme ownership, you'll always be a victim. Now, some people might be like, well, you can't control if a tornado comes and destroys your house and kills your family. Like, yeah, you're right. You can't control that. But in that situation, you can either decide to be all bitter and miserable and kill yourself or go out and kill other people because of it. Or you could decide to internalize that pain and go out and empower other people maybe going through the same situation. or you can, have a bunch of other different choices that you decide to do. But regardless of whatever you decide to do, at the end of the day, it's your choice on what you decide to do and how you respond to that situation. So when it comes down to it, even the situations that you can't control, you still always, no matter what, always have the power in how you respond to it. So it does come down. It's extreme ownership has really changed my entire life for real, man. But yeah, dude, after prison, I did 4 years flat, came home when I was 23. Nobody wants to go back to prison, I don't think, unless you're just a nut job. But and sometimes I got to question myself in that. But no, I wanted to stay up, man, and do good. But it was really tough. I got a job at a bar and grill, working 50, 60 hours a week, and then I got a job at a clothing store because I'd always shop there. And I got promoted my third day there because I was crushing it. Sold 3,000. The whole store did 9,000 on my third day. That was 1/3 of the whole store operation. So I got a promotion. I'm like, yes, I'm finally putting this shit behind me, and putting my past behind me. I'm moving forward. I'm in a career that I enjoy. Sales. I've always been good with people. Right. And then 2 days later, they call me back like, yeah, Mr. Babcock, you're a convicted felon. Kick rocks. And I'm like, well, shit. And instead of asking myself those empowering questions in that moment, I asked all the disempowering questions. I did the, oh, why me, through the pity party, became an alcoholic, and then ended up going back to prison. And that was just 20 days before my twin sons were born. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back. That was like, fuck this, we're done. Like I can't, it was my desire to change at that point became stronger than my desire to stay the same. I was just hit that pain threshold, man. It was like, I'm done, dude. And I made a decision right there in that jail cell, getting ready to go back to prison, that I said I didn't care what it took. I don't care how long it takes me to get back home. And I don't care what I got to do whenever I get back home. I'm going to be a responsible father and happy and successful. And from that moment, I started moving in a completely different direction in my life.
So I look at that, we were talking about the decisions, and we were just literally talking from a standpoint of like, this put you in this situation and this and everything else. So you're being extremely successful in this job, and I hate to go back to this, but I really want to touch on it. And you get a call or you get a letter or whatever it is, or you have to talk to a director or whatever, and they say you're a convicted felon, you can't work here. What in the hell can you do if you really have truly changed, your whole aspect of your life, and that's going to follow you around for the rest of your life, right? What can you do at that point to defend yourself in a situation like that?
Become an entrepreneur.
There you go. So for all of those people asking, and here's the thing. We live in a world now where we have really every single person has the ability to do that. So what was funny is you realize that you were like, well, wait a minute. So this is probably going to end up following me around forever. So at this point, I'm just going to be my own boss.
Yeah, it wasn't like that thought process, but that was pretty much the outcome. When I got fired, I'm like, well, shit, man, this is never like, and I thought I was doomed. And so I just started becoming a raging alcoholic, and that's what led me back to prison. But I did 8 months the second time. And when I got home, it didn't matter. I was going to find some way to win, but I didn't know that I had to start my own business. I pretty much had the idea, and I had this funny business idea. It's funny to look back on it. But when I went back, it was in 2014, and the whole Michael Brown situation in Ferguson, Missouri happened. And that's where I'm from. I'm from Ferguson, Missouri. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, shit, like, this is unfortunate that happened, but the media is a fucking goddamn lie. Like, this my neighborhood, I grew up here. It's nothing like what they're putting it out to be. They're overhyping everything, and this is just bullshit. But and so out of that I guess the uncertainty of how I was going to be able to provide for my family, and seeing this bullshit on the news, I'm like, well, man, I'm going to get out and I'm going to make these little, because I did a bunch of like, selling t-shirts and shit before, and had a ton of sales jobs. I was like, of door to door, like selling roofing, siding, gutters, even selling steaks off the back of pickup trucks as a kid and stuff. I was like, I'm going to make these t-shirts, man, that say I Heart Ferguson on them, and these wristbands, and I'm going to sell them door to door. That was a hell of a business model, by the way. But that was the plan moving forward. But when I got home, I needed to get some startup capital to make that happen. And I was looking for a job, couldn't find anything for about 2 months. And then, thank God, I'm no longer in network marketing, but I got introduced to network marketing. At the time, I didn't know what the hell network marketing was, so you couldn't scare me off the word pyramid scheme or anything.
Yeah, right. Like, this isn't an MLM, I swear.
Right. And so I got into that, dude, and that's what kind of started it. And I did that for about 2 years. I'm so grateful for it, even though so I started making about almost $2,000 a month residual income within my first 6 months because I was just hungry, dude. I was out there getting it, and I was building a team and everything. But over time, it just wasn't my thing. I'm not knocking every network marketing company and every network marketer, because there are good ones out there and there's bad ones out there, just like in any industry. However, the one I was in taught me to, hey, make a list, go run through it. Just don't even treat people like people, just try and sell them shit or whatever. And that just didn't resonate. And over time, I started burning relationships. And so I ended up moving forward. But I'm grateful for it because it taught me three really important things. One, it taught me how not to network with people and how not to build relationships. Two, it taught me, it opened me up to personal development. That's when I started reading personal development books and got me into the whole personal development of myself. And then three, most importantly, it showed me that it don't matter what my fucking past is, that I have the power to design my own life. And so that's why I'm really grateful for that industry.
Yeah. And it's funny because I compare that, to myself too, where, before in my life, there was no question about it that I had no direction whatsoever, man. Like I tried school. I did not do well in school at all, ever. I did terrible in college. Which is, it's obviously I dropped out, but like you said before, unless you want to be a doctor or an engineer or an attorney or something that you have to have a specific degree in, it's not for every single person. But as far as directional jobs that give you experience, the car business is what gave me the experience in sales. And I still think to this day that the car business is the best business to get in if you really, truly want to be a great salesperson. If you really want to learn like sales 101, the car business 100%, there's no question about it. You look guys like Grant Cardone, same thing, man. That guy came from the car. He is straight car business, and everything that he does, right? And so I find it interesting from your standpoint that you knew at that point, you got into the situation, you got what you needed, and then you got out of it instead of being one of those people that just stuck through it. And that's what a lot of people do right now is they're in a job, they're unhappy. They know that they're not really helping anyone. And the money's okay enough that they're getting by, yet they don't really end up doing anything that they truly love and are passionate about, and realize that we live in an age where we can actually do things that make us really happy and we can monetize it. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of where we are now in that journey with you is, so you leave the network marketing thing. So now what?
Yeah.
Now what are you doing? Cause now you made some money, you got some cash, you maybe bank some. Wifey's probably like, okay, finally Zach's back to good old Zach. And he's doing a great job and the kids are coming and this and everything else. Now what?
Yeah, man. Like I mentioned, I started losing my passion for it. And then also my business crumbled as a result, just cause I wasn't into it. And so I was down to making like, after auto ship, probably like anywhere from 300 to 600 a month. So it wasn't much. And it just wasn't my thing. So I'm losing my passion for it. And then at the same time, I was initially scared to share my story of going to prison and being on heavy drugs, because my thought process was, well, shit, I got fired after I'd already did my time at that clothing store. I'm definitely not going to say anything about it in entrepreneurship, because if I do, then nobody's going to take me seriously. And then I'll just be fucked all the way around the board and I'll never be able to provide for my family or live a life of my dreams. And so I was scared initially. And then one of my mentors in network marketing got me to start sharing it. And that helped me realize the power behind it. And I was like, wow, that's actually one of my greatest strengths is the story, because it draws people in and shit. Right? It's like a crazy story or whatnot. And it can help a lot of people and that are going through some shit. And so I wrote a book while I was still in network marketing. It's still on Amazon. I pulled down the print copy. Like you can only get it. You can still get it on Kindle on there, but I glorify network marketing like throughout the book. So I don't really, it's not my thing anymore. Right.
Right. Yeah.
But in that book, Prison of Promised Land, though, I shared that story, and that was in October of 2016. October 11th is the day it went live. And that was like, man, I want to do more of this kind of shit. I don't know what it is, but this is more, I don't know. And I was just on the fence, and finally I started following Gary Vaynerchuk at that time. And I was like, this is what I want to do, man. I want to go out and make content, man. And my thing was be a life coach at that time. And so it's a funny story. But so in the very beginning of 2017, I can't stand New Year's resolutions. I'm all about just set goals every single day and go after them instead of, this year I'm going to do this or whatever.
Right.
But that year, I'm like, I'm starting the year off fresh. I'm going to cut network marketing completely and just go all in on this. And so I did. And I started creating content and became a life coach in the beginning of 2017. And Todd, bro, I literally made zero money as a life coach and helped zero people as a life coach.
Do you really know that, though? Do you really know if you have or haven't?
I mean, I might have helped
you
some
don't
people.
Know.
Yeah. True.
It's funny that you bring that up because a lot of this, like, I definitely did not set out to be a life coach at all. Like, at all. And I did the same thing as you. It was like actually it was my business partner. He was like, dude, you should start sharing all the shit that happened to you. And he's like, watch what happens. And that when I started doing that, that's immediately, just like with you, immediately all of a sudden it started attracting the people that were going through the same shit. And they were going, oh, okay. And sometimes you have to realize to yourself, and whether you want to talk about religion or this, that, or anything else, sometimes you realize like, man, maybe he put it on me or maybe she put it on me to say he can handle it. And then he can take this message and he can pass it along to these people to help them that maybe aren't as strong, to help pull them through. And that's something I really truly believe in. I take that to heart. And like you were saying, the life coach thing, you almost feel like you're a fraud or a fake when you feel like that, because you start comparing yourselves to other people that have gone through worse things than you, if that makes sense, right? Like I'm sitting here like divorce and bankruptcy and this and everything. You're like, yeah, motherfucker, I was in a goddamn jail cell that was 3x3 for 9 months. Like you haven't dealt with shit, right?
Yeah, but I almost even don't even feel like that. Like when people say that, I'm like, I know that I feel like just because it sounds worse, like prison or whatever versus a divorce, whatever, who's to say though that that's worse? Because that divorce, you could have, like, I'm just speculating here.
Well, it could have broken me, right? It could have broken me to the point of like suicide or something like that, right? Same in prison. So yeah, I think that's the part in your head though, when you start realizing that it's like the manifestation of, am I really helping people?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I was getting back to, is that I remember I was sitting down with a friend and he said, he's like, I just came from this event and he's like, all these people were talking about you. And I was like, really? Like good shit, bad shit, And he was like, no, man, it was all good. He's like, and I was like, yeah, no, it's like, it's showing him like my profiles, man. I'm like getting like a lot of growth there. And he's like, yeah, dude. He's like, the people that are communicating with you online right now, that's like 1% of the people that are talking about you in the real world. And when he said that, that touched me and I went, fuck, man, he's right. So there's people that we probably tell our stories and we probably share a lot of stuff and they might see it. They don't say anything to us, but it helps us. Cause if you think about it, you do it too. Like you might see something like you just said on Gary's thing or any of the guys that you follow, you might see something one day and it touches you. You don't say anything to them, but it did help you. And so, you might be thinking, man, I didn't make any money. I didn't help anybody, but I guarantee you probably did. They just didn't say anything to you. 100%.
Yeah.
They obviously didn't fucking pay you, which is bullshit, but regardless. We start realizing that though, right? We start realizing that a lot of the stuff that we can do to help people, that the monetization isn't to make money off somebody. The monetization is that it's our time And for us, and it's exhausting, man. I mean, you speak, right? I mean, there's times where you have to go and do seminars, or you have to go do speaking engagements. And I do the same thing. That shit is fucking exhausting, dude. You're
Yeah.
emotionally fucking exhausted when you come off those stages. Am I right?
Oh yeah.
I mean, and a lot of people don't realize that, right? I mean, to be able to keep 200, 300 people focused, it's impossible for us with what we deal with, to be able to keep that many people focused for that, for hour and 45 minutes that you're up there talking. It's emotional exhaustion. There's no question about it. So, but I guarantee you that you've helped some other people. So you're in this situation, you write the book, you put the book out, you make zero money as a life coach. So now you're back to square one again. Now what?
Yeah, man. I'm sitting there. I'm ramming my head into brick walls, trying to figure this shit out, trying to figure out how to make money online. My message is just all over the fucking place. I'm saying things like, I can help you achieve your goals. I can help you live a better life. Like, who in the fuck would want to pay somebody money for something like that? Like, it was just, and I that's what I got for doing shit like that. I got nothing. And so a couple people told me like, oh, well, entrepreneurs like to invest in things that help them make money. They don't want to invest into a life coach. I'm like, okay, I'm going to become a business coach then. Broke as fuck, becoming a business coach, all this shit. and man, it was just like literally a big circle jerk just of just doing this stuff. But I really started diving deep into psychology and marketing and stuff like those topics really excite me a lot. I love human psychology, human nature. It's amazing, man. It's incredible, and anything involving two or more people is psychology and stuff. So that's what really drew me to that. And I realized that, in marketing specifically, like, all it is psychology. If you just really understand humans, you can understand how to market them and understand what they want and need and what their biggest problems are and so on. And so that's where I started gravitating towards. And I learned a lot through my failures, I guess you would say. But what I had my first kind of like, I guess, breakthrough, my first like, wow, this is really like starting to change, was when I launched the podcast. And I launched the podcast, bro, because here I was trying to collaborate with other entrepreneurs. And anytime I tried to collaborate with anybody, nobody took me seriously. I was just the ex-convict turned entrepreneur afterthought that nobody gave any time of day to. And I was fucking pissed, man. I was pissed off about it. I was like, that's why the whole underdog empowerment thing came about. I was like, man, fuck that. I'm gonna show these people, they got the wrong one. And so out of that pain, out of that frustration of nobody taking me seriously, I decided to launch the Underdog Empowerment Podcast. And this time I did it right, because I had a brand before on YouTube that went nowhere. It was called Win with Zach. And that sucked ass because it was cheesy and it was selfish. It was just Win with Zach. That's not something that everybody can get behind. It was about me,
Yeah.
And so I learned from that, bro. And then so I was like, okay, I need to create something like a movement, a brand that a movement that people could get behind that speaks to a specific type of person. And so I started asking, well, who am I? I'm an ex-convict. Well, I'm not just an ex-convict. Who am I, man? I'm like, well, I'm an entrepreneur. And I just kept asking. I was like, well, but what more specific? I was like, let's get more specific. And I was like, well, I'm an underdog. I'm an underdog entrepreneur. I got all these odds stacked against me. Everybody count me out, but it don't matter. I'm committed to winning and getting that respect that I crave. And so that's where I was like, underdog. And then so I got really specific about the words underdog is for, I just describe that. Then you can Google empowerment. It's giving power to a specific group of people or whatnot. And that's where I settled on that name. And then it even went even further with the colors, the red, black, and white. If you Google psychology of colors, like red is like aggressive and power, and black's more like has a dark side to it, but it's also elegant, and white's kind of like that clarity and peace. So it's like all these mixed together spoke directly to that specific type. And then when I launched the podcast, bro, became a top 200 rated podcaster the third day. And then the next week we had Billie Jean's marketing on the show.
Yeah.
It was crazy because the week before nobody wanted anything to do with me. And then a week later I'm interviewing celebrities and shit. So it was like, it was insane. It was nuts. And I finally knew that I was onto something. I started finding my space in the market.
Yeah, 100%. And that's where I feel like you started realizing, you're like, wait a minute. Okay. I can help other people tell their stories, and then I can fit in somewhat of my opinions inside those stories at the same time to bring awareness to myself. And that's where you ended up figuring it all out. So get me into this one. Cause Billy Jean's a fucking hilarious dude, man. I give him a lot of props because from an awareness standpoint, I remember there was some situation in San Diego. I think Vaynerchuk was doing a seminar, and Billy Jean was one of the guys who actually asked him a question. And I think he said, he was like, hey, I run an agency here, blah, 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 blah. And then I remember Gary said something about Billy. Like it was something, I can't remember what it was. It was, maybe it was on Grant Cardone's thing or something like that about it. But that kind of sent me sideways on Vaynerchuk a little bit, just because I was like, damn, man. So it's like, you're allowed to do all this, but like if somebody else wants to go out and do it, like they can't do it. Like you shit on him because he's doing well. When I started following Billy, I started seeing, I'm like, this guy gets it, dude. He's entertaining people. He's educating people, and he's being informative with things that he's putting out. No wonder people fucking follow him. He's doing it right. And so how did that all come about? Like, did he reach out to you about being on the podcast? Did you reach out to him about being on the podcast? Did you just see his stuff and find interest in it and be like, this is somebody I want to talk to? Like, how did you lead to that?
Yeah, man.
The reason I asked that is because some of the people that, and just so you guys know, like just kind of a side marker here. I mean, this is what Zach does, right? He helps people tell their stories, and typically he doesn't get, I guess, asked quite often to get hit to tell his story. So kind of is like good for him. But at the end of the day, you guys are all trying to start podcasts. You want to start podcasts, or I tell you, I'm like, dude, should go start a podcast. You have to have interesting people on for people to listen, right?
Yeah, 100%, bro.
Was that what happened, or how did that turn?
Yeah, dude. So I met Billy at a event in 2017 in Long Beach, and then a few months after that event, before the podcast, I had reached out to him, and I was trying to get him to be on my online summit. I didn't even know what the fuck I was doing. I was
I love all these things. You're like, man, I'm just going to fucking try this and this and this.
Yeah, it's
awesome.
exactly what it was. And on his personal page, on his personal Facebook, so I was connected with him from the event. Every time I've messaged him there, like he opens it, like I guess he's like glued to his phone, because he like opens it right away.
Yeah.
And you know, you could tell when somebody opens a message. So I sent him that, and I seen him open it, and then he never responded. And I was like, that sucks. But I deserved it, because it didn't have any value in it for him, and it wasn't dialed in. And then we launched a podcast, became a top 200 rated podcast, and I reached out to him as soon as I did. I'm like, yo, Billy, this became a top 200 rated podcaster, man. I'd love to interview you on the show. Can we make it happen? And he opened it up right away and responded right away and said, it was his assistant's email. He said, she got my schedule. That was the exact words. His assistant's email, she got my schedule. That was it. And then I hit her up, and then we had him on the next week or whatnot. So it was awesome. It was pretty cool, man. But yeah, yeah, dude, it's been, so I'm not going to say it's been like nothing, like I haven't struggled since, because obviously working on a process, I don't trust them. Yeah, it's always boom. It's all, I don't say it's all because of the podcast, but man, for me, you know, now, you know, like I do like in-person interviews with like Andy Frisilla, Bradley, John Lee Dumas. And what that does, it's like,
it's social proofs you, Zach.
Yeah, 100%.
It's social proofs you. In my opinion, when those guys tap you, basically when they're saying, "Yep, I'm going to give you my time," and they're tapping you, saying he's the real deal. You know what I mean? So like from a social media marketing standpoint, when Dennis Yu, one of my mentors, was on with Billy Jean, right? And I'm trained. I train with Dennis. It social proofs you. It's with these big guys, right? And so it was funny because you were just saying like everybody that always wins, like you don't end up trusting them. I remember, this is recent. Like I don't even know if you saw this video yet, but it was basically a video about like me. I wanted to be in this. I wanted to do this digital agency summit seminar thing, and everybody was talking about social media marketing, and nobody was talking about reputation management, online reputation management, which is what like my thing is, right? And I reached out and I sent my application in, and nobody hit me back. And I saw Dennis was going to be speaking there. And I was like, hey man, I said, this is a super selfish question. Is there any way that you could get this to somebody that's a decision maker where I could talk about reputation management? Because I said, I went through the speakers that are going to be there, and nobody there is talking about reputation management. Everybody's typically or technically, they're talking about the exact same thing. It's just a different person. And he was like, yeah. And so like, I didn't hear anything back for like a week or two. Right. And at that point, of course, you're like, he's not hitting me back. Odds are like not good. So he hits me back, and he doesn't say no. He just says, or it doesn't tell me like they didn't say that they said no. He just was like, you're on a trajectory right now, and you're doing really good, and you're out there and you're speaking, and you're charging for your speaking, and you're doing well in the agency, and your agency's flourishing, and you're doing all this stuff, and everything's going good. He's like, they're going to contact you when you're ready and when it's your time. And that, I was like, fucking sucked to fucking hear that, dude.
Yeah.
Like I was like,
I want to do this shit now.
I want to do it now. And then I sat back and I was like, wait a minute, man. I was like, who the fuck am I to say that I'm the guy that should be up there? I was like, instead, you're right. Let me wait. And then he said to me, he goes, dude, make a fucking video about that. Make a video about how you're feeling right now. And so I grabbed one of my people here with the camera, and I said, let's go outside. Let's sit on the sidewalk. And I just want to fucking spill it. And that video did really, really well. And it was only because I completely made myself vulnerable and was like, I fucking lose too. Like, I cheer and I put a lot of people on, like, from a standpoint of like, I want people to do really well, and this is why you should be positive thinking and everything else like that. But I also fucking get mad at myself and like depressed about it and mad about it and angry about it and sad about it and all this kind of stuff. And I think when you get that vulnerable and you share that, that really breeds a lot more social proof sometimes than being in contact with somebody that is like maybe bigger than you or higher than you on that scale of social proof. So like you said, man, the trust of, hey, everything's always fucking awesome. Like, why would you trust somebody like that? Because it's fucking impossible, dude.
Yeah. Thank you, dude. All right. This is something that I'm really, really passionate about, but dude, I'll see those virtue signaling fake ass douchebag motherfuckers online, dude, that are always like, oh, my life's so positive, and I'm giving value to the world, and I'm making contributions and impact. And don't get me wrong, I love everything I do is based around helping other people, but it's geared first and foremost to help me first and foremost.
Correct.
And it should always be that way with every single person. That's why in the airplanes, they say, put the air mask on yourself first before you even put it on your kids. You have to fill up your cup first before you can fill up any other cup, period. And then, so the people that are always like, my life's so positive, and it's bullshit, and I don't fucking trust them. And the reason why is because, dude, it is, like you said, it is literally impossible not to have dark thoughts, emotions, and desires. Every human being has it. It's legit hardwired in us. We are human fucking beings. That's why we have all these different emotions. We're going to experience all of them. There's no way not to. You're going to feel jealousy at times. You're going to feel envious at times. You're going to feel hatred and all this stuff. Like, you mean to tell me that there's not times where you don't want to literally punch someone dead in the throat, or like hit them with a bat upside there? Like, you don't imagine yourself like hit, like, dude, that happens, bro.
Every day.
Yeah.
I do. I mean, yeah. And I talk about that. Right. But I've what you just said is totally interesting. It's the stuff that I put out is for me to keep me on an even keel, and if it helps somebody else, great. But a lot of the stuff that I put out, I'm very selfish with my posts. And it just is what it is. Like, I'm selfish with it because all I'm doing is taking something that I felt and putting it there and putting it out there. And if it's positive, it's great. So if I feel like if I put out positive shit, then it's what I'm going to end up consuming anyway. But I wanted to, and Dennis was right by telling me this, was like, document the losses and the stuff. And that's why I would say stuff. I'm like, fucking right, I lose clients, dude. It sucks. I fucking hate it. I hate losing clients. Was it my fault? Yep, probably. Probably was. I fucking hate losing bids for jobs. Was it my fault? Maybe. Probably was, though. If once you start accepting the fault side of it, then it makes a lot more sense. But you're right, man. There's a lot of people out there that's all they share is the fucking good positive stuff. And that we're the fucking best and we're number one and this, that, and everything else. That's great, man. But at the end of the day, if you're not showing the losses and stuff, it's not fucking real, man. It's not real at all. And people the kids nowadays can smell fucking real a mile away, and they can smell fake as shit a mile away too.
Yeah, man. 100%, dude. And exactly, dude. It humanizes you. And then on top of that too, man, you got to think, man, like the people that do act positive and shit all the time are the ones that you really have to watch out for, because they're the ones that are more likely to do more. They're more secretive and have more darker urges and are going to do more crazier shit. You know, if you ever studied the works of Carl Jung, or Jung, or I can't never pronounce his name, Jung, the great psychologist back in like the 1930s and shit.
No, but now I want to.
Oh, dude.
He
talks about this shadow work, man. He talks about how, you know, how we all had this shit, but he talks about the best way to actually prevent these dark thoughts, emotions, and desires from actualizing themselves, and, you know, to prevent yourself from actually going out and killing somebody or whatever, is to actually incorporate it with the rest of the persona and bring it to the surface and be real and open about it, because then that's the best way to actually stop it versus trying to suppress it like all of us have done, and like trying to act like, you know, we don't have it and stuff. And here's the deal, man. No matter what, I mean, it happens every single day on the micro level. You see, I mean, people cut other people down to get to where they want all the time. It happens, bro. On the micro level, people cut off people on the highway. They vie for positions in checkout lanes. All this shit, man. And then on a macro level, it happens where countries wage wars against others to get what they want, or big corporations impose these tax laws on the lower. It's just the shit happens, but to incorporate and just bring it to the surface is how to actually stop and prevent it from actualizing it, from preventing it from becoming a monster, instead of suppressing it down below the surface and letting it fester and grow into something crazy. You know what I mean?
What advice would you give someone that is currently dealing with that is doing that right now, and maybe they need to start having that way of thinking instead? What would be give me the first step of moving in that direction?
Absolutely.
That type of mindset.
No doubt. I can only share what's my experience and what's helped for me. So I was going through this, like, dude, remember I said I was scared to share my story?
Yeah.
Because I was in entrepreneurship and I thought nobody would take me seriously. I used to wear fucking suits and ties and shit, bro. And that's not me, man.
I've seen it.
Yeah.
There's old YouTube videos, dude. YouTube Zach, and you can see him in like suits and stuff. Actually,
oh my God.
Probably YouTube me recently, and I wearing a suit. And I only wear a suit for my mother, Nicole, or this older lady, Marjorie Hampson, for that I do some stuff for Restaurant Week for here for the restaurants. That's it. But it's funny, I don't do it anymore. I refuse to. But go ahead. Yeah. So sorry about that. I cut you off on the advice part.
Oh, you're good. You're good. Yeah, dude. I did the whole fake and be positive, and like I don't have these bad feelings, thoughts, and desires, all this shit or whatever. And it wasn't me. And the reason why we do this, for one, you know, society places the standard, and then we're all secretly failing to meet that standard because there's no such thing as the ideal fucking human being, because we're fucking human beings. And it's good, though, that society has it, because a society that would allow rape and murder and shit like that would not be a good society to live in. But still, though, there's no such thing as meeting the ideal. And so we find that line as a kid, and then we dance along that line our entire lives. The rest of our lives just dancing on it. And so I was doing this bullshit, and it just wasn't me. And, you know, I would not say things because I was afraid, knowing I wouldn't say things that I know could actually improve the quality of life of another human being, but I wouldn't say them because I was afraid of how I'd be perceived by others by doing it. And see, that shit is disempowering. And when I finally started studying like the Carl Jungs and all this shit, and started unlocking this shit and just really, you know, like not holding back, because here's the deal. No matter what you say, no matter how you say it, no matter what you do, no matter who you are, there's always going to be people that fucking hate you for it. There's always going to be people that fucking love you for it. And it's just so much easier to be yourself, because then you don't have to fake and pretend or anything. You just be yourself, and you can actually be happy and at peace with that. And yeah, there's still gonna be people that fucking hate you in the process. But at the end of the day, man, you're able to be you and have that freedom in the process of doing that.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that because and this takes us back almost to the beginning of the episode when we were talking about that, we care about what other people think about us. Do you think that also with that same mindset that you were just talking about, that just being yourself kind of thing, don't you think that also kind of comes with age? Because I got to tell you, probably not up until the age of, geez, I was probably in my early 30-ish where I was really starting to find myself. I didn't really truly like unlock everything about myself and then really not care so much about the exterior side of things. Probably last maybe 3 or 4 years. Like where it really kind of came to like a point where I was like, that's it. I'm just going to wear what I want, dress like I want, act like I want, share what I want, work like I want. You know what I mean? Like everything. Only hang out with the people I want to hang out with. Like stop, pandering to the fucking people where like I want to get something, like either I want to get a sale or whatever it was. Like I'm just stopping it. You're absolutely positively right. And I hope you guys, if you guys didn't, hit that back 30 seconds 3 times and go back and listen to what Zach just said. The minute that you start living your life like that, with that type of mindset, you watch what happens around you. Everything starts to go a completely different way. And it all starts to make sense now. Okay. And then people start, you start attracting people that are like-minded, that think the same way as you, right? And these are people that you want to surround yourself with, and those people uplift you. And when the haters come around, all right, and they start sniffing around, because they will do that because they're jealous or they're upset or they wish they could do those things that you're doing. When they come around, that's when your tribe starts to surround them like a pack of wolves, man. And what happens is they drive them off. And I've seen that happen. And that's when I also became more of the sarcastic me, right? Like when somebody would post something up in the comments, instead of getting pissed off about it, man, I would just put up like a GIF, like, you know what I mean? Like it was just more like your fucking comments doesn't mean shit to me, dude. Like you can say whatever you want. Like it's cool. You can have your opinion and stuff like that. So I really hope you guys take that one to heart, because if anything comes out of this episode, that is the one major thing right there, is that people are going to, no matter what you do, they're going to hate you. They're going to try to push you back down to where you were at one point. You just got to surround yourself with the people that are trying to uplift you as much as possible. And there's people like Zach out there. If you're real and you're true, he's one of those guys. He'll be the first one to come to your defense. I can assure you. And I've seen his shit in threads. Do not start to tangle with the underdog in the thread, because he will rip you apart like a pit bull, baby. And pit bulls are very nice dogs, by the way. I just want to say that.
I'm really soft as medicated cotton. Everybody just thinks I'm tough.
Oh, yeah, right. So as we kind of like teeter towards the end of the episode, what I always like to do, and I think you kind of already know this, is that there's a couple things that, and I wanted to talk about social media for a second, because social media, believe it or not, is something that you actually do very, very well, in my opinion. You disperse a lot of really good content on multiple platforms. And I wanted to talk about that for a second. So let's say somebody does have a podcast, they're starting a podcast, or they just want to distribute content. Give me 3 tips that you use that maybe you've never shared before, that my listeners could listen to and be like, oh, wow, this is something that maybe I should try, or something that works really well for you, that just from like A/B testing you've done yourself, that's worked for you, that could help them.
Yeah. Number 1, because I learned this shit the hard way. Everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people that I see, I'll put it that way. A lot of people that I see when they start doing the social media thing and putting out content, is they get on every single platform. And I did that too. And don't do that. That will crush your creativity quicker than shit. You'll spread yourself too thin. You won't be able to keep up with it, and it'll become painful, and you'll just hate doing it. Start off with, because I did that, man, and it was horrible. Start off with just one two at the most, but just one platform, master that platform. And I mean, fucking master it, actually put in the time, like really, don't be not a self-proclaimed expert, like really master something, get it down. All right. And then after you got that, then you can add on to it. Like me, for example, I was on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, everything. And, it was horrible. And then I cut it was hard. I even had to cut out YouTube. I'm getting back on YouTube and launching my blog because I have a whole entire team and we can put out the content now. But I stripped everything down to just podcasting and Facebook. And when I did that, because I was like, well, I can't get rid of the podcast because that's what started getting me this.
Sure.
This
it was the
success.
pillar. Yeah.
Yeah, and I stayed on Facebook because that's where I had always been, and I had like more of a engaged following. I didn't have the largest following on Facebook, but I had the most engagement there. And so that's all I've been on. And now we're getting ready to get back on YouTube and the blog on the website. And then eventually, after we get those down and the systems out, and then we're going to get to Instagram. So start with one, I guess, would be the first piece of advice. Second, get really clear on who it is that you serve. Now, if you're doing content, I'm talking about for personal branding specifically.
Thank you.
Yes. If not talking about if you got a company, all right, but like if you're doing personal branding, and the key word here is personal, your ideal customer avatar, or whatever you want to call it, your ideal audience, is not something that you fucking make an imaginary fucking avatar and get the demo. Oh, he's a 35-year-old male that has 2 kids and a wife and makes $100K a year. No, motherfucker. Your ideal customer avatar is you, if it's a personal brand. Because if you make up this imaginary avatar, all right, and you're doing a personal brand, then you have to be the ideal for that avatar. And if it doesn't align with who you are, people are going to sniff that shit out really quickly.
Yep.
And I've done this. I failed on this miserably. And if you just get really clear on who you are and who you were yesterday and how you can help yourself get to where you're at right now, you'll see a lot more success that way. And then the third piece of advice is, man, I don't even know. I think those two are like really what I hammer down on, but consistency. I know that's so cliche and whatever, but cliches tend to be real. Wherever you're at, show up consistently. If you're not consistent with it, then people won't take you seriously. They can't trust you. They can't count on you to be somewhere. So if you're going to do something, commit to it, and be consistent with what you commit to. And that would be my 3 pieces, tidbits.
Those are good. My contrary on the first one is I talk about casting a wide net, right? Because Facebook and Instagram went down, and then there were so many people that counted on that one like platform or 2 platforms to distribute their content. What I agree with what Zach said is don't overwhelm yourself to the point where you've listened to what I said of casting a wide net, right? Of being on all these different platforms. But then at the same time, you're spreading yourself so thin that you basically don't even have time to create content because you're too busy trying to upload all this content to all these different platforms. If you find one that you really, really like, that's where the best content's going to end up. And then at that point, that's where your followers are going to be. And then you can start distributing that and widening that net, like Zach was just saying. Then you can start casting that wider net, which really leads back into the patience game, where it's like you try to rush LinkedIn, you try to rush Instagram, you try to rush Twitter. And, look, dude, like I fucking put content out every day on Twitter, and I barely break a fucking little crack in the fucking wall over at Twitter. It just is what it is. But going back to your point of staying consistent, I'm consistent every single day. I'm also engaging with other people. And I think that's where you always end up finding the most value is when you jump in and you start engaging with other people. That's when that's when things really start to change for you, is when you're actually engaging. I mean, everything else there, the consistency standpoint is not even a question about it. If that was your point as a personal brand, you have to stay consistent and you have to stay in the eyes of the people that are following you or listening to what you're saying. If you're not staying consistent, then you're not drinking your own Kool-Aid. So don't fucking talk about being consistent and then not be consistent. That's an immediate, non-creditation of being social proofed. And so, it's just like the YouTube challenge that I'm doing. Like, I really fucking in my head don't want to do this, but I really don't. But in my head, I want to challenge myself because I wasn't feeling challenged in some of the stuff I was doing. I wanted to challenge myself, but then I want to be able to show people, even like a mom or a dad that's like in their 50s or 60s, man, that they can go and they can create content around something that they love just by using things that are super easy to use. And if they stay consistent to it, that it might actually, you know, turn into something really, really big. And I've already noticed that, which is pretty cool. And then I think the second one, what was the second one? That's my fault.
Oh, it's all good. It was consistent was the third one. First one was the customer avatar and personal
Customer
branding.
avatar. The biggest part there is just be the real you.
Yeah.
It's the easiest part. Once you've done that, everything else is gravy. No question about it. All right. So last but not least, we talked about the social media side of it. Give me 3 motivational tips. Because you are one motivational son of a bitch. You know that?
Thank you, man.
You pump me up, brother. So give me 3 motivational tips on your side that keep you kind of rolling all day long.
Yeah, man. So I started the whole underdog empowerment thing off of motivation of, you know, okay, they want to count me out. I'm gonna prove these motherfuckers wrong. And having that, like that common enemy, like that, okay, I'm gonna prove them, you know, whatever. That's great motivation, great to get started. That's one. But 2,
Chip on your shoulder.
Yeah, have that chip on your
Got
shoulder.
it.
2, now that chip on your shoulder isn't always going to be a chip on your shoulder. Eventually, you're going to get to the point where, like, well, fuck, I done proved them wrong. I did everything they said I couldn't do. What's next? And also, there's going to be days where you're just not fucking motivated. Motivation is bullshit. It comes and goes, you know? So it's good to have it, good to use it, and it's good when you have it. But what do you do when times when you don't? So have those strong enough reasons why, like right here, I mean, you guys obviously can't see it because it's a podcast, but here in my office where we're doing this interview, I look to the right of my desk and I have a vision board that represents every single thing that I want in my life in every single aspect, not just money, not just houses, not just whatever. I got things that I want to do with my kids, places that we want to visit. How I have this thing. It's a bunch of balloon faces, and one has like a sad face on, one has a mad face, one has a happy, and so it's a bunch of different emotions, and it says I am the master above it, meaning I'm the master of my emotions. That's another thing I strive for. Like all these, I could go on and on, but it's just a visual representation of everything that I want in my life. And so I know what's driving me. I had those strong enough reasons why I'm doing it. Like for me, it started off with to be a father figure, be in my kid's life. And now it's grown so much more. And now I know what I'm aiming for each and every day. And then so I can make my goals, those tiny little small goals that are leading towards of exactly what I want. To sum that up, if you don't aim at, if you aim at nothing, you'll hit it every time. I think that's a Zig Ziglar quote that always stuck with me, man. It's so true though. So know exactly what it is that you want. And then finally, man, just going back to what we talked about earlier, I couldn't stress it enough. Complete ownership, man. If you just own everything in your life, because I used to be the complete opposite. I used to blame all my problems and every fucking thing that went wrong on anything and everybody else besides me. And then when I turned that around and took ownership for everything wrong and right in my life, that's when the game changed for me. So yeah, that would be my 3 tidbits right there.
God damn, I'm jacked up as fuck right now, dude. After doing all that vision board, dude. If you haven't done a vision board yet, do that. I did it, and it's really awesome. Zach, thanks for coming on, man. Where can everybody follow you?
Yeah, dude, the podcast, dude, Underdog Empowerment. If you guys enjoyed this, love to see you guys over there. It's on literally any podcast platform that you listen to podcasts to. But to make it really simple for you, you can go to underdogempowerment.com, and right there on the front page, you might have to scroll down just a tad. You can subscribe to iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, whatever. Hope to see you there. And Todd, thanks for so much for having me on the show, man. It's been a blast, bro.
Dude, it was an absolute blessing to have you on, man, because I think this is something that everybody needed to hear. And I do listen to Zach's podcast quite often, actually, especially like on longer drives, just because I need to just get pumped up and jacked up. And that last 2 minutes of this episode, if that didn't get you jacked up to go do something fucking spectacular, something's fucking wrong, and you need to unsubscribe from my fucking podcast right now. Zachary Babcock, the Underdog. Thanks, brother.
Thank you.